On Thanksgiving evening, my mother-in-law laughed in front of the entire family when I presented my cheap gifts. She said proper women don't wrap affection in recycled paper. That night, I didn't argue. I opened my laptop. The next morning, when the mall's security gates rolled up, my signature was already on the ownership papers and her boutique no longer had a lease. My name is Maya Carter, and I've learned that the cruelest insults often come wrapped in perfect manners and served alongside cranberry sauce. The Whitmore house gleamed like a catalog spread that Thanksgiving evening. Crystal glasses caught the chandelier light, throwing tiny rainbows across the mahogany dining table that could seat 20. The football game droned from the 70-inch TV in the adjacent living room, where my brother-in-law Derek kept shouting about a bad call. The air smelled of sage, butter, and that particular brand of old money confidence that my mother-in-law Evelyn wore like her favorite Hermes scarf. I'd spent 3 days preparing my gifts, not shopping preparing. The kitchen table in our apartment had been covered with fabric scraps, block printing supplies, and careful rows of hand-stitched edges. The children from the Maple Ridge Community Center had helped me design the patterns, their small fingers pressing carved blocks into fabric ink, creating wobbly stars and crooked hearts that somehow looked perfect in their imperfection. "Gift time," Evelyn announced after the pumpkin pie, her voice cutting through conversations about inflation rates and Black Friday strategies. She sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court, her platinum bob perfectly styled despite hours in the kitchen, though we all knew her housekeeper Sandra had done the actual cooking. I watched Jason, my husband, shift nervously beside me. He knew what was in those brown paper packages I'd brought, wrapped in twine and decorated with sprigs of dried lavender from our balcony garden. He'd suggested, gently, that maybe this year we should just order something from Nordstrom. "You know how Mom is about presentations," he'd said, but I'd wanted to give something meaningful, something real. The first package went to Evelyn. She unwrapped it with manicured nails, her smile fixed until she saw what lay inside a set of hand-printed kitchen towels, each one unique, created by the kids during our weekend art program. Attached was a card explaining that a matching donation had been made to the Maple Ridge Food Bank in her name. The silence stretched. Evelyn's friend Patricia, who owned the wine shop downtown, leaned in to get a better look. Someone, I think it was Jason's cousin Brittany, already had her phone out, recording. "Oh, Maya," Evelyn finally said, her laugh tinkling like breaking glass. "How crafty." She held up one towel between 2 fingers, as if it might stain her cream silk blouse. "You know, dear, proper women show appreciation with Tiffany, not kitchen towels. This looks like something from a church rummage sale." Patricia giggled. Brittany's phone stayed steady, capturing every second. "Mom," Jason started weakly, but Evelyn wasn't finished. "I suppose not everyone understands the economics of gift-giving," she continued, setting the towels aside with deliberate carelessness, right next to the turkey carcass. "Especially in retail. Speaking of which, everyone must come to tomorrow's champagne stroll at Belltower Commons. My boutique, Eclat and Ivy, is the centerpiece of the whole event. We're expecting Channel 8 News." She looked directly at me. "Perhaps you could learn something about proper presentation. Maya. After all, the mall is the beating heart of Maple Ridge's economy, something you'd understand if you knew anything about real business." The table erupted in uncomfortable laughter and redirected conversations. Jason squeezed my knee under the table, not in solidarity, but in warning. "Don't make a scene. Don't embarrass her." I excused myself to help clear plates, carrying my brown paper packages to the kitchen where they sat abandoned on the marble counter. Twine undone, lavender crushed. Through the doorway, I could hear Evelyn regaling everyone with stories about the proper gifts she'd received from other daughters-in-law in her social circle, the Cartier watch from Derek's wife, the Venetian glass from her friend's son's wife, standing alone in that gleaming kitchen, listening to the casual cruelty dressed up as conversation. I made a decision. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't defend myself. I wouldn't give them the dramatic scene they were already half expecting. Instead, I would wait until morning, and then I would buy their entire stage. This wasn't the first time Evelyn had performed her particular brand of public humiliation. 3 years of marriage to Jason had taught me her patterns, the way she'd wait until we had an audience, how she'd coat her venom in concern, the surgical precision with which she'd find your softest spots and press. There was the engagement party where she'd loudly suggested I might want to reconsider my dress size before the wedding. The baby shower for Jason's cousin where she'd explained to everyone that some women just weren't naturally maternal while staring directly at me. The country club lunch where she'd introduced me as Jason's wife. She works in, what is it again? Dear something with failing businesses. Jason had inherited his mother's bone structure and his father's passive spine. After each incident, he'd offer the same weak salve, "She doesn't mean it that way," or, "You know she had a difficult childhood," or my personal favorite, "Just don't let it bother you." As if humiliation was something you could simply choose not to feel, like deciding not to notice rain while standing in a thunderstorm. What Evelyn didn't know, what none of them knew, was who I really was beyond the quiet daughter-in-law who wore sensible flats to their gatherings. I was a turnaround specialist at Northbridge Capital Partners, though I'd been deliberately vague about my role at family dinners. Let them think I was some mid-level analyst pushing papers. The truth was, I restructured failing retail properties, transformed dead malls into profitable mixed-use developments, and had just quietly exited my position in Parcel Nest, a prop tech startup that had sold to a major REIT for 8 figures. My cut, after taxes and the ironclad NDA, was sitting in a portfolio of liquid assets that would make Evelyn's boutique profits look like pocket change. I lived modestly by choice, not circumstance. The tiny apartment Jason complained about I owned the entire building through an LLC. The Honda Civic that Evelyn said sent the wrong message. It was paid in cash, just like the 3 investment properties I'd acquired in the last year. But my real advantage wasn't money. It was knowledge. I knew Bell Tower Commons inside and out. Hell, I'd evaluated it for Northbridge 2 years ago when Starline Properties first started hemorrhaging cash. The mall was bleeding tenants, barely maintaining 60% occupancy. The anchor stores were hanging on by threads, and the smaller retailers were months behind on CAM charges. Starline had been shopping it quietly, desperate to offload before the next quarterly report. I also knew about Ekla and Ivy's lease violations. During my evaluation, I'd reviewed every tenant agreement. Evelyn's boutique had been flagged for multiple infractions: unauthorized subleasing of display space, consistent late payment of common area maintenance fees, and several fire code violations from hanging merchandise that blocked the sprinkler systems. Starline had been too desperate to enforce anything, afraid of losing even problematic tenants. 3 weeks ago, Harbor and Pine Realty had sent me the listing again. Still interested, the email read, "Seller very motivated, owner financing available." I'd almost deleted it. Almost. But now, sitting in my car outside the Whitmore house while Jason stayed inside to smooth things over with his mother, I pulled up that email again. The term sheet was still attached. The numbers still worked. The bridge loan from Pioneer Bank was pre-approved, secured against my Parcel Nest payout and real estate portfolio. The mall could be mine by morning if I wanted it. I thought about those kitchen towels, thrown aside like garbage. They'd taken the kids 4 weekends to complete. 9-year-old Marcus had been so proud of his star pattern, had made me promise to tell whoever received it that he'd designed it himself. I thought about Evelyn's boutique, the centerpiece of tomorrow's champagne stroll, where Channel 8 would capture her holding court, where she'd stand in her little kingdom and tell everyone who mattered in Maple Ridge that her daughter-in-law didn't understand proper gifts or real business. I opened my laptop right there in the driver's seat, the screen's glow cutting through the darkness. The folder labeled Bell Tower Hot Close contained everything: commitment letters, wire instructions, draft operating agreements for the LLC I'd need to form. My phone buzzed. "Jason, where are you? Mom wants to discuss Christmas plans." I typed back, "Handling some business. Don't wait up." Then I called my lawyer. "Yes, on Thanksgiving night. That's what retainers are for. Rachel. It's Maya Carter. I need to close on a property tomorrow morning. 8-figure deal. Can you meet me at your office in an hour? There was only the briefest pause before Rachel Huang's voice came through. Sharp and ready. I'll bring coffee. The group chat started pinging before I even made it to Rachel's office. Whitmore Women, Evelyn's digital kingdom where she held court with Jason's aunts, cousins, and the various satellites of her social orbit. Brittany had posted the video. Of course she had. There I was, frozen in Evelyn's living room, holding my pathetic brown paper packages while she performed her dissection. The caption read, Aunt Ev teaching gift etiquette 101. Thanksgiving. Awkward. The comments rolled in fast. Patricia. Those towels, though. Derek's wife, Suzanne. At least she tried Evelyn herself. Some people need more guidance than others. I'll be hosting a gift-giving workshop before Christmas. Maya, dear, I'll save you a front row seat. 37 laughing emojis. 12 reshares. The video had already spread to the Maple Ridge Moms Facebook group. I sat in my car outside Rachel's office building, watching the numbers climb. Jason called twice. I didn't answer. Instead, I texted, saw the video. Thanks for defending me. His response was predictable. Don't be dramatic. You know how Mom is. Just apologize tomorrow before the gala and everything will blow over. Apologize. For giving handmade gifts. For supporting the food bank. For existing in a way that didn't meet Evelyn Whitmore's standards. Actually, I typed back, I have other plans for tomorrow. Maya, please, don't ruin Black Friday for the family. I laughed out loud in my empty car. Don't ruin Black Friday. As if I was the one who'd turned gift-giving into a blood sport. Rachel's office smelled like coffee and ambition, even at 10:30 p.m. on Thanksgiving. She had 3 monitors glowing on her desk, contracts already pulled up. Timeline, she asked, not wasting words. Funding memo signed by 8 a.m., closing at 9:30. Notice to tenants out by 10. During the Black Friday gala, she looked up, a small smile playing at her lips. Theatrical. Necessary, I corrected. The mall opens at 6 a.m. for early bird shoppers. The gala starts at 9. Maximum witnesses. Rachel pulled up the Starline portfolio. Purchase price, $12.5 million. They listed at 15, but they'll take 12.5. Cash. Bridge loan from Pioneer Bank, 70%. I'm covering the rest plus closing costs, about $4 million out of pocket. She whistled low. That parcel nest exit was good to you. Good enough? I pulled out my laptop, showing her the folder I'd been maintaining for 2 years. Here's everything. Tenant rolls, CAM reconciliations, violation notices that Starline never enforced. Pay special attention to Eclat and Ivy. Rachel scanned the documents, her expression sharpening. They're in default on multiple counts, but Starline was too scared to enforce. I won't have that problem. You want to evict your mother-in-law on Black Friday. I want to enforce the lease terms that she signed. If that results in eviction, that's on her. Rachel leaned back, studying me. You know this will go nuclear. Family-wise. I thought about Jason asking me to apologize, about 3 years of swallowed insults, about those kitchen towels sitting next to turkey bones. It already has, I said. I'm just choosing the battlefield. We worked until 2 May, structuring everything through November Dawn Holdings LLC incorporated in Delaware, registered in Connecticut, with me as the sole member. The operating agreement was bulletproof. The wire instructions were confirmed. The estoppel certificates had been prepared during Starline's last desperate attempt to sell. The seller's attorney can have everything ready by 7 a.m., Rachel confirmed after a call. They're motivated. Apparently, Starline's board meets Monday, and they need this off the books. Perfect. I signed where she indicated, my hand steady despite the caffeine and adrenaline. What about the notice to tenants? I'll have a process server ready at 10 a.m. sharp. Though technically, we could just post it at the management office. No, I said. Hand delivery. To every tenant. especially Ekla and Ivy. I want receipts. Rachel grinned. You really did evaluate this property before. I've been evaluating it for 2 years. I admitted. I just needed a reason to pull the trigger. My phone buzzed again. The group chat had evolved. Someone had made a meme out of my face in the video, that frozen moment of disbelief as Evelyn mocked my gifts. The caption, "When you thought handmade was heartfelt, but it's just heartbreaking. 93 reactions and counting." You know what, I told Rachel, signing the last document. Let them have their fun tonight. Tomorrow's stage belongs to me. The apartment was dark when I got home at 3:15. Jason was asleep, or pretending to be. I didn't particularly care which. I set up my command center on the kitchen table, the same one where those children had pressed their small hands into fabric, creating patterns that Evelyn had dismissed as garbage. 3 laptops, 2 phones, a stack of contracts that would reshape tomorrow's landscape. The wire transfer went out at $4 million moving through the electronic ether. Every penny traced and legitimate. The bridge loan from Pioneer Bank activated at 4:30. The escrow account at Commonwealth Title received confirmation at 4:45. I called my operations team the people who actually knew how to run a mall, not just shop in one. Marcus, it's Maya. Yes, I know what time it is. I need you at Bell Tower Commons by 9 a.m. Full facility assessment. Bring the whole crew. Marcus Rivera had turned around 6 properties with me. He didn't ask questions, just confirmed. Next call. Angela, we're activating the Bell Tower plan. New security protocols effective 10 a.m. Yes, today, Black Friday. Angela Park, former military police, now ran the best commercial security firm in Connecticut. She'd have her people in place before the gala poured its first champagne. The property management software was already loaded with new codes. Every door, every lock, every access point in Bell Tower Commons would answer to new masters the moment the sale closed. I'd learned from the best hostile takeovers control the infrastructure first. Worry about hearts and minds later. At 5 a.m., I reviewed the lease violations one more time. Ekla and Ivy was a masterclass in privileged negligence. 4 months behind on CAM charges, $18,000 unauthorized sublease of the corner display to Patricia's Wine pop-up breach of Section 7. 2. Merchandise displays, blocking sprinkler heads, 6 separate fire code violations. Unapproved structural modifications to the storefront breach of Section 12.4. Any one of these could trigger immediate termination with proper notice. Together, they were a sledgehammer waiting to fall. I drafted the notice of default at 5:30, each word precise and legally bulletproof. Then the notice of immediate termination for safety violations that one would be delivered by the fire marshal himself, who owed me a favor from the Westbrook Plaza situation last year. Jason stirred at 6. What are you doing? Working. On Black Friday, Mom expects us at the gala. I'll be there. He sat up, finally noticing the paperwork spread across the table. What is all this business? Maya, if this is about last night, it's not. I lied smoothly. I have a closing this morning. Big property. Today, that's insane. Can't it wait until Monday? I looked at him, really looked at him. Soft face, soft spine, soft ethics. 3 years I'd waited for him to stand up to his mother. 3 years of just don't let it bother you, and that's just how she is. No, I said. It can't wait. The printer hummed, producing copies of every document: title transfer, operating agreement, vendor contracts, new tenant policies, the transformation of Bell Tower Commons from Evelyn's kingdom to my chessboard. At 6:45, Rachel texted, "Seller's attorney is in. They're reviewing final docs now. At 7:15, they've signed. Waiting on your wire confirmation." At 7:30, my phone rang. Commonwealth Title. Ms. Carter wire received and confirmed. We're ready to close. I stood up, cracking my neck after 4 hours hunched over contracts. Jason watched from the doorway, confusion written across his features. Where are you going? To buy a mall, I said. gathering my documents, then to your mother's gala. What, Maya? What are you talking about? I paused at the door, looking back at him. You told me to not ruin Black Friday for the family. I'm not going to ruin it. I smiled, thinking of those security codes about to change, those notices about to be served, that boutique about to close. I'm going to own it. The drive to Bell Tower Commons took 12 minutes. The parking lot was already filling early bird shoppers clutching coffee and lists, ready for Black Friday battle. They had no idea the real war was happening in a conference room on the second floor. At 8:45, I signed my name for the last time Maya Carter, managing member, November Dawn Holdings LLC. At 8:52, the deed was recorded electronically with the county. At 8:55, I owned every square foot of Evelyn Whitmore's kingdom. At 9 sharp, I sent a text to the group chat the Whitmore women who'd spent all night laughing at my expense, running late to the gala. Save me a glass of champagne. I have an announcement to make. Then I turned to Marcus and Angela, who'd arrived with their teams. Let's go. It's showtime. The Bell Tower Commons looked different at 9:05 a.m. on Black Friday. Not physically, the same polished floors reflected the holiday decorations. The same fountain bubbled in the center court. The same shops displayed their red-tagged merchandise. But now it was mine. Every tile, every light fixture, every square inch of retail space answered to November Dawn Holdings LLC. The champagne stroll was already in full swing. White tents lined the main corridor, each one representing Maple Ridge's finest establishments. Evelyn's tent, naturally, commanded the prime spot in front of Eclat and Ivy. Gold and ivory balloons formed an arch over tables draped in linen, where young servers in black ties poured Veuve Clicquot for the town's elite. I watched from the management office on the second floor as Channel 8's news van pulled up. The reporter Sandra Something, with the helmet hair, was already interviewing Evelyn, who gestured grandly at her boutique while wearing a winter white ensemble that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payments. Status. I asked Marcus. Fire marshals on site, reviewing the violation reports. Building inspection team is ready. New security codes go live in 15 minutes, Angela added. Process servers are positioned. We have 12 notices to deliver, but Eclat and Ivy is the priority. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Rachel. Escrow confirms funds received. You're official? At 9:27, the county recorder's electronic system updated. Property transfer recorded Bell Tower Commons. New owner November Dawn Holdings LLC. At 9:35, I gave the signal. The LED screens throughout the mall, usually showing store directories and sale announcements, flickered to a new message. Bell Tower Commons under new management. November Dawn Holdings LLC. All tenants, please report to management office by noon for mandatory briefing. The reaction was immediate. Shoppers paused mid-stride. Store managers emerged from their doorways, and in the center court, Evelyn's champagne toast halted as people pointed at the screens. Marcus activated the PA system. His voice, calm and professional, echoed through the corridors. Attention Bell Tower Commons tenants and guests. Please be advised that as of 9:30 a.m. today, this property is under new ownership. A brief pause in special events is required while we complete mandatory safety inspections. Normal shopping activities may continue. Thank you for your patience. Through the office window, I watched Evelyn's face cycle through confusion, irritation, and then rage as she spotted the fire marshal approaching her tent. The marshal, Tom Brennan, 6'4" and built like he'd never met a code violation he didn't take, personally held up his badge and what I knew was a cease and desist order for the gala. Ma'am, I need to see your event permit and fire safety clearance. This is ridiculous. Evelyn's voice carried even from 2 floors up. We've held this gala for 7 years. Under the previous ownership, Tom replied, new ownership requires new permits. Additionally, your tent configuration violates fire egress requirements. This event needs to pause until proper documentation is provided. Sandra from Channel 8 had her microphone out. capturing every word. The morning news story was writing itself, though not the puff piece Evelyn had orchestrated. Angela touched her earpiece. Security confirms all access codes updated. Previous management keys are deactivated. Down below, Evelyn was escalating. She'd pulled out her phone, probably calling the previous property manager who'd been informed of the termination at 9 a.m., and escorted out by security. His confused voicemail would be enlightening. At 9:50, more drama. The boutique's assistant manager, trying to open Eclat and Ivy for the Black Friday rush, found her keycard wouldn't work. She pulled on the door handles, confused. Security approached Angela's people, professional and polite, to explain that all access would be restored after the mandatory tenant meeting. But the best part was at 10:02 a.m. when the process server, a small, efficient woman who looked like someone's grandmother, walked straight through the chaos to hand Evelyn a thick envelope. Evelyn Whitmore, you're being served with a notice of default and notice to cure regarding Eclat and Ivy's tenancy at Bell Tower Commons. Why, Evelyn took the envelope on autopilot, her face now the color of her white dress. She tore it open, her eyes scanning the pages while Patricia peered over her shoulder. The crowd had grown. Black Friday shoppers, sensing drama better than any doorbuster sale, formed a circle. Phones came out. Someone was already live streaming on Instagram. At 10:15, Evelyn found her voice. This is impossible. Who authorized this? I want to speak to the owner immediately. Marcus, following my script perfectly, spoke into his radio loud enough for everyone to hear. Please inform Ms. Carter that the tenant from Unit 127 demands an audience. That's when I made my entrance. I walked through the crowd wearing a simple black suit and the laminated badge that read, Ownership Representative. No fanfare, no drama, just steady steps toward the woman who'd spent years making me feel small. The crowd parted. Someone whispered, Is that the daughter-in-law? Sandra from Channel 8 swung her camera in my direction. Evelyn's face went from white to red to something beyond color, a kind of mottled fury that made her Botox work overtime. Maya, what is this? What have you done? I held up the closing binder, its weight satisfying in my hands. Good morning, Evelyn. I heard you wanted to speak with the owner. This is a joke, Jason. She spotted him pushing through the crowd, still in his pajama pants and a hastily thrown-on jacket. Your wife has lost her mind. Jason looked between us, his mouth opening and closing like a beached fish. Maya, what's happening? What's happening? I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Is that as of 9:30 this morning? I own Bell Tower Commons. Every store, every contract, every square foot. I turned to Evelyn, including the lease for Eclat and Ivy. Patricia laughed nervously. That's impossible. The mall was owned by Starline. Was, I interrupted. Past tense. As of today, it's owned by November Dawn Holdings LLC, which is owned entirely by me. The crowd had grown. I recognized faces from last night's dinner, Brittany with her phone out again. Derek looking stunned. Suzanne clutching her shopping bags. The Whitmore women group chat must be exploding. Evelyn found her voice. You can't, this is harassment. We have a lease. You do. I agreed, opening the binder to the tagged sections. A lease with 17 documented violations. Would you like me to list them publicly, or shall we discuss this in private? This is extortion. Tom Brennan stepped forward. Ma'am, I'm here in an official capacity. The fire code violations in your store are serious. Merchandise blocking sprinkler heads, exit signs obscured, electrical cords creating trip hazards. Those are lies. I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the mall's digital display system through the management app. Suddenly, the LED screens showed photographs, date-stamped inspection photos from inside Eclat and Ivy, scarves draped over sprinkler heads, boxes stacked in front of emergency exits, extension cords snaking across customer walkways. These were taken during routine inspections over the past 6 months. I explained. The previous ownership chose not to enforce. I'm not that generous. Evelyn's hands shook as she held the notice. You planned this. You vindictive little careful, I warned. Channel 8 is recording. Speaking of which, I turned to Sandra. Would you like an exclusive on the mall's renovation plans? I'm converting 30% of the retail space to community services, art studios for local children, a permanent food bank location, small business incubators with subsidized rent for minority entrepreneurs. Sandra's eyes lit up. This was better than a puff piece about a champagne stroll. You can't do this, Evelyn shrieked. That boutique is mine. I built it. On property you don't own, I reminded her. With a lease you've repeatedly violated. However, I'm not unreasonable. You have 72 hours to cure the CAM charge defaults. The safety violations need immediate remediation. Tom here will oversee that. The unauthorized sublease to Patricia's wine pop-up ends today. Patricia went pale. But the holiday season? Should have thought of that before operating without permits. I checked my watch. The fire marshal will be sealing the boutique in 10 minutes for safety inspection. I suggest you remove any personal items now. Jason finally found words. Maya, stop. This is my mother. Yes, I said, meeting his eyes. The same mother who spent last night mocking my gifts in front of everyone. The same mother who posted videos in the family group chat. The same mother who said I didn't understand real business. I held up the brown paper package I'd brought, the same one from last night, retrieved from Evelyn's kitchen trash. Funny thing about those cheap handmade gifts, the children who made them, they're getting the empty storefront next to the food court, free retail space for their entrepreneurship program. Those kitchen towels Evelyn threw away, they'll be the first products sold in their new store. The crowd murmured. Someone started clapping, just one person, then another, then scattered applause that made Evelyn's face contort. As for understanding business, I continued, pulling out a tablet showing financial projections. Bell Tower Commons has been hemorrhaging money for 3 years. 60% occupancy, declining foot traffic, anchor stores threatening to leave. The previous owners were desperate to sell. I paid $12.5 million for a property assessed at $20 million just 2 years ago. By this time next year, with proper management and community integration, it'll be worth $30 million. I turned back to Evelyn, whose white outfit now looked like surrender. So, yes, I understand business. I understand it well enough to buy your entire stage. The fire marshal stepped forward with the seal notice. Ma'am, I need to secure the premises now. Evelyn stood frozen as Tom affixed the bright orange notice to Ekla and Ivy's glass doors. The sound of tape unrolling seemed impossibly loud. Someone in the crowd gasped. Brittany's phone captured every second. This isn't over, Evelyn hissed. Actually, it is. I handed her another document. Your lease included a particularly unfortunate waiver clause, Section 31.7. In case of safety violations requiring closure, the landlord has sole discretion over reopening approval. Even if you cure every violation, I decide when or if you reopen. I reached into my bag and pulled out the brown paper package, the same one Evelyn had tossed aside like garbage 12 hours ago. The crowd leaned in, sensing something significant was about to happen. You know what's funny about cheap gifts, I said, carefully unwrapping the recycled paper. Sometimes they're worth more than you think. Inside was the hand-printed kitchen towel, but now I unfolded it completely. The children's artwork wasn't random. It was a map, a detailed layout of Bell Tower Commons with every empty storefront marked with a small star, every struggling business highlighted in yellow, every lease violation documented in tiny, meticulous handwriting around the borders. I've been planning this for 2 years, I explained, holding it up so the cameras could see. Every time I brought the kids here for their art program, we mapped them all. They thought it was a game, find the empty stores, count the broken lights, spot the safety hazards. They were doing reconnaissance, and they didn't even know it. Evelyn's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I pulled out the second item, what she'd dismissed as a charity donation card last night. This isn't a donation receipt, it's a term sheet. The Maple Ridge Food Bank was the code name for the LLC I've been structuring. Every donation was actually a capital contribution to the acquisition fund. Patricia gasped. You've been planning this since the first time Evelyn publicly humiliated me at a charity luncheon 3 years ago. I confirmed, when she told everyone I didn't understand proper society, so I decided to buy the property her society revolves around. I turned to the LED screens, which now displayed a presentation I'd prepared months ago. New Bell Tower Commons, a community transformation. Phase 1. Youth Entrepreneur Center where kids can sell their handmade products, including those kitchen towels. Phase 2. 40% rent reduction for businesses that employ local teens. Phase 3. The empty anchor store becomes a makerspace with 3D printers, laser cutters, and textile equipment, all free for residents under 18. The crowd was buzzing now. Parents with kids started applauding. Store managers who'd been worried about the ownership change began nodding. But here's my favorite part, I continued, clicking to the next slide. The boutique space currently occupied by Ekla and Ivy pending their cure of violations. Of course, we'll have special lease terms. Any new tenant gets 6 months free rent if they agree to mentor youth entrepreneurs. Patricia, that includes your wine shop expansion. If you'd like to teach teenagers about retail management non-alcoholic beverage division, obviously. Patricia looked between me and Evelyn, calculating her options at visible speed. Evelyn finally found her voice. You think you've won, I'll sue you into oblivion. With what grounds? I pulled out another document. This is the inspection report you signed last year, stating that you'd remedied all violations. You lied on an official document. That's fraud. Then there's the $18,000 in unpaid CAM charges, that's breach of contract. Oh, and the unauthorized sublease where you've been pocketing Patricia's rent without declaring it, that's tax evasion. I turned to Jason, who looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Your mother was right about one thing. I didn't understand gift giving. I thought it was about sentiment. But in your family, it's about power. So here's my gift to Maple Ridge. The screens changed again, showing architectural renderings of a transformed mall, green spaces, community gardens on the roof, a child care center, a senior activity hub. Every profit from this transformation, every penny above operating costs, goes into the Maple Ridge Community Fund, not to November Dawn Holdings, not to me. To the community your mother claims to care so much about. Tom Brennan had finished sealing the boutique. The orange notices looked like celebration banners in the morning light. But Maya, someone called out. It was Marcus, 9 years old, from the community center. He was here with his grandmother for Black Friday shopping. Does this mean we get to sell our towels in a real store? I knelt down to his level, smiling. Not just sell them. Marcus, you get to run the store. You and all your friends, I'll teach you inventory, pricing, customer service, real business skills. The kind, proper people understand, he asked innocently. The crowd laughed. Even Sandra from Channel 8 cracked a smile. I stood, facing Evelyn one last time. You said those towels looked like something from a church rummage sale. You were wrong. They look like something from the new Bell Tower Commons, where creativity matters more than labels, where children's dreams are worth more than champagne strolls, and where proper is defined by how you treat people, not what you can afford to buy them. I held up the original gift tag from last night, reading it aloud. Made with love by the children of Maple Ridge Community Center, every thread woven with hope, every pattern pressed with pride. Then I looked directly at Evelyn. Still think it's cheap. The silence stretched until Jason finally spoke. Maya, can we talk about this? We could have talked last night, I replied. When you chose to let your mother humiliate me instead. We could have talked this morning, when you told me to apologize. But now I have a mall to run and a community to serve. The talking time has passed. I signaled to Marcus and Angela. Please ensure all tenants receive their briefing packets. The mandatory meeting is in 45 minutes. Anyone who misses it forfeits their Black Friday sales privileges. As I walked away, I heard Evelyn shriek, You can't just leave, we're family. I stopped, not turning around. No. Family defends each other. What we are is related by law. And speaking of law, I pulled out my phone, texting Rachel, "Please file the separation papers with the court. Jason can be served at his mother's house." The glass doors of Eclat and Ivy reflected the morning sun as they slowly closed, the automatic mechanism pulling them shut with a soft mechanical sigh. The orange compliance notices gleamed like victory flags, closed by order of fire marshal, and code violations under review, positioned perfectly at eye level. Evelyn stood frozen on the marble floor, her white outfit now looking more like a flag of surrender than the power statement she'd intended. The champagne flute in her hand trembled, sending tiny ripples through the expensive wine nobody was drinking anymore. The crowd had grown massive. Black Friday shoppers abandoned their deal hunting to witness something far more valuable, the complete dismantling of Maple Ridge's most notorious social tyrant. Phones pointed from every angle, live streams running on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Someone had already created a hashtag #SarMallJustice. A cold November wind swept through the center court, rustling the abandoned gala tents, carrying away the carefully arranged napkins with Evelyn's monogram. The champagne towers stood untouched, bubbles rising and popping like small surrenders. "Mrs. Whitmore," Tom Brennan announced officially, "you have 15 minutes to remove any personal items from the boutique before we complete the seal." Patricia stepped away from Evelyn, physically distancing herself from the sinking ship. I have inventory to check," she mumbled, practically running toward her wine shop. One by one, the Whitmore women dispersed. Brittany lowered her phone, suddenly finding her shoes fascinating. Derek muttered something about needing to get home. Suzanne simply walked away without a word. The kingdom Evelyn had built on cruelty and credit cards collapsed in real time. Jason stood between us, his mother and his wife, looking like a man watching his world restructure itself. "Maya, please, this is too much." "Too much." I pulled out my phone, showing him the group chat. 147 messages mocking my gifts. 53 laughing emojis at my expense. Your mother turned kindness into content. So I turned her mall into a monument to everything she despises: community, compassion, and children's dreams. The LED screens throughout Bell Tower Commons suddenly lit up with a new message: Grand Reopening Celebration, New Bell Tower Commons, where community comes first. Music began playing through the speaker system, not the classical pieces Evelyn preferred, but upbeat, welcoming tunes. The fountain in the center court, which had been turned off for months to save money, suddenly burst to life, sending cascades of water dancing in the morning light. Store managers began emerging from their shops, many smiling for the first time in months. The owner of the struggling bookstore actually had tears in his eyes when Marcus handed him the briefing packet showing the new reduced rent structure. 40% reduction if we host children's reading hours, he said, voice breaking. I can actually stay open. Not just stay open, I told him. Thrive. Little Marcus tugged on my jacket. Ms. Maya, can we really have our own store? Unit 237. I said, handing him a key on a ribbon. Right between the candy shop and the toy store. Prime retail location for young entrepreneurs. His grandmother started crying, pulling me into a hug that smelled like cinnamon and flour. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for seeing our children as more than charity cases. The fire marshal finished his work, stepping back to admire the thoroughly sealed boutique, Evelyn's empire, reduced to a locked glass box filled with overpriced clothes and broken dreams. This isn't over, Evelyn finally screamed, her composure completely shattered. I know judges, I know lawyers, I know everyone who matters in this town, and I know the law. I replied simply, every document filed, every violation documented, every deadline met. You can hire whoever you want, they'll all tell you the same thing. You signed the lease, you agreed to the terms, you violated the conditions, you lose. I turned to address the crowd one final time, standing in the center of what had been Evelyn's champagne stroll, now transformed into something far more meaningful. Bell Tower Commons is under new management. We're not just changing policies, we're changing purpose. This mall will no longer cater exclusively to those who can afford champagne at 10 a.m. on a Friday. It belongs to everyone, the teenagers who need jobs, the seniors who need community, the children who need to believe their handmade gifts are valuable. The applause started slowly, then built into thunder. Someone shouted, "About time." Another called out, "Thank you." I looked at Jason one last time. Your mother was right. I didn't understand your world, but now I own it, and I'm turning it into something better. Security approached Angela's team, professional and purposeful. "Ms. Carter, the tenant meeting begins in 30 minutes. Set up in the main court," I instructed. "Open attendance? Let everyone see what transparency looks like." As I walked toward the management office, the crowd parted respectfully. Behind me, I heard the sound of Evelyn's heels clicking frantically on marble, Jason's voice calling after her, and the continuous chime of phones capturing the end of an era. The last thing I saw before entering the elevator was the LED screen displaying a simple message: "Welcome to the new Bell Tower Commons, where every gift matters." The doors closed on Evelyn's world. Mine had just opened. Thank you so much for listening to this story of sweet revenge and poetic justice. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If you enjoyed watching a mother-in-law's empire crumble over dismissed handmade gifts, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever been dismissed or humiliated by someone who underestimated you? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one.